Blasting is the cheapest way for mines to fracture rock. It makes consumer goods that are manufactured from mined resources less expensive.
The things that we use on a daily basis, our cell phones, the roads we drive to and from work on, the buildings that are constructed, the energy that we use to power those cars. Even if it's an electric vehicle, commercial explosives are essential to that. The minerals and the things that you need to make a battery, all of those things at some point were touched by commercial explosives.
But as a war rages in Ukraine, the U.S. is facing a shortage of the popular explosive TNT.
Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, NATO and Europe are rearming at a pace that they haven't really been doing since about maybe the middle of the Cold War of the 1980s. These geopolitical drivers are placing demand on all parts of the defense supply chain.
Commercial explosives are essential for the roughly $2 trillion construction industry, the $2.1 trillion energy industry, the $737 billion mining industry, and the $170 billion quarry industry. To address the shortage, Congress approved the construction of an Army-run TNT plant, but it's not estimated to be operational until 2028.
In the short term, we're going to have to find supplies to meet the demand.
Here's what's at stake if the U.S. runs out of TNT, and how the commercial blasting and defense industries are searching for a solution to the shortage. In November 2024, the U.S. Army announced that defense manufacturer Repcon USA had been awarded a $435 million contract to design, build, and commission a TNT production facility in Graham, Kentucky.
The production from that facility is intended for both military and commercial use.
TNT is still one of the primary explosive chemicals used in things such as artillery shells, as well as other forms of weapons such as bombs and missiles.
What's going to happen here in Muhlenberg County is exactly involved in this larger effort to get America ready to prevent war by being strong.
In 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, one of the first facilities that the Russians took control of was an explosives manufacturing facility. And that was something that we relied on here in the United States for imports. And as we've seen other NATO allies and the United States trying to support and provide different munitions and weapons to Ukraine, that has created a global supply shortage.
For the US and its allies to be able to not just fight the current wars that are going on in the world, but to have a large stockpile and to be able to demonstrate to the world that you have what we call magazine depth, simply the ability to keep going and sustain a fight for longer, that in itself provides a measure of security and stability in the world.
Today marks the beginning of the return of TNT production to American soil. This history-making initiative underscores our commitment to strengthening our national security and reducing reliance on foreign sources for critical materials.
This TNT facility is going to take advantage of state-of-the-art automation and a novel waste neutralization process to make it one of the most high-tech, safe, and environmentally friendly TNT plants ever constructed.
It's not always very common to see new players enter the space. The specific industrial equipment used to produce TNT is highly demanding to operate. It requires a lot of specialist skills, and it can also be potentially very dangerous as well.
On October 10th, 2025, there was a deadly explosion at explosives manufacturing plant Accurate Energetic Systems in Tennessee, who doesn't produce but processes and supplies a variety of bulk explosives for commercial and military use, including TNT.
This is a great day for the United States, bringing this industry back to the U.S. We've been actually at the mercy of other countries for this product that's going to be built here. So it will be the only place in this country that makes this product.
The goal is to ensure we have a domestic supply. We may still be relying on imports for some part of that demand, but I think that remains to be seen.
Quarries depend on explosives like TNT to mine the raw materials that are essential to American life.
TNT remains one of the most powerful non-nuclear explosives available in the industry today.
TNT is actually a very stable material, and that goes into making what we call cast boosters or boosters. And that is one of really three essential products in order to have a blast at a mine or a quarry or a construction site.
Right now in my hand is a pellet of penolite, which is a combination of PETN and TNT. Pentolite is typically used in mining boosters.
Our industry, we provide about a $19.5 billion annual economic contribution in the United States and support about 60,000 jobs. That's just our industry. If you go back to the other industries that we support, you think about how essential it is to have commercial explosives.
TNT, or 2,4,6-trinitrotoluene, doesn't occur naturally in the environment and must be manufactured.
The United States has not produced TNT domestically since 1986. Some of that is due to market factors, but some of that is also due to environmental regulation.
TNT production can create wastewaters called red water and pink water. Atmospheric exposure to TNT can have negative impacts on human health and the environment. Today, several EPA-designated Superfund sites formerly produced TNT. The commercial explosives industry is estimated to use up to 3,500 tons of TNT a year.
But as we've seen with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, that material has become harder and harder to source with fewer production facilities around the world.
It was indeed actually China and Russia who up until just a few years ago were selling TNT directly to the USA. Then the US had to rely a lot on Poland.
In April 2025, Polish explosives maker Nitrochem announced an over $300 million deal to supply 18,000 tons of TNT to the US for military use between 2027 and 2029.
Now the reality is that Polish company Nitrochem is absolutely flooded with orders at the moment, and most of their produce has been going across the border the other way into Ukraine.
So when the biggest producers in the world are Russia and China, and those supplies have essentially been cut off, we're having to seek sources from other places. And then you combine on top of the supply shortage, we now have tariffs. For example, you could get TNT for 50 cents a pound a few decades ago. Now we're looking in some cases upwards of $20 per pound. And that's a significant increase that, again, it's not just the impact on our industry, but really it's the impact on our customers. That means more expensive construction projects, more expensive infrastructure projects, more expensive energy production, all of these things, again, that our economy relies on to continue to grow.
With the Army-run TNT plant not estimated to be operational until 2028, the commercial explosives industry is scrambling for a more immediate solution to the shortage.
We're having to make not just supply decisions, but business decisions in finding the most cost-effective solutions to be able to supply our customers, those mining companies, those energy companies, with not just a sufficient supply, but one that's also affordable.
Returning TNT production to the U.S. is just one way that the government could help alleviate price hikes and project slowdowns that may be caused by the shortage.
First and foremost is tariffs and finding a way to either reduce or provide relief for the companies that are having to import these critical materials that just aren't produced or available domestically.
Companies are also searching for alternative explosives to TNT.
We have a sufficient supply of domestic PETN at this point.
Most detonators have PETN as the primary. These specific caps are primarily used for mining. You would drill holes and then fill that with a blasting agent and a booster. So your booster would be pentolite, so PETN and TNT.
There are currently 2 companies in the United States that manufacture PETN.
So there are companies looking at, for example, an all PETN booster to reduce that need for TNT.
The reality is that whilst we may talk about potential alternative explosive chemicals such as PETN, PBX, RBX, or things such as those, the supply chain for all of these chemicals actually has a remarkable amount of similarity.
It's not just TNT that we're facing a shortage of. You have other high explosives, HMX, RDX, PETN, and HNS that are all used in the commercial explosives industry.
I think most countries and companies are going to have no option other than to look very intensely at new and novel forms of energetics, any sort of application of emerging technologies such as additive manufacturing, artificial intelligence and automation in the workplace, anything that can make efficiency savings in the production of just one piece of TNT from pound to pound or one artillery shell. Those are savings that are going to add up in the long term. I think the countries that are able to derive explosive materials from something other than petrochemicals, which is really the key to all this at the end of the day, they're going to be a bit of a disruptor.
Right now, we can use explosives in a very cost-effective way to mine these minerals and extract them from the earth and process them and put them into usable materials. Think about how many excavators, how many backhoes, how many shovels, how much manpower and diesel fuel and energy it would take without commercial explosives. mean, the cost would be just astronomical.
What's most interesting to me as an analyst is keeping an eye on whether real shortages continue to grow and if that impacts the ways militaries think about what specific items they want to buy, right? If you can more effectively take down a drone using electronic warfare and jamming rather than weapons loaded with TNT, that's a cost efficiency and a saving.